You're listening to the Telltale Channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the term Bernie bro. So, I've been a Bernie Sanders fan since day one, okay? I've been a Bernie Sanders fan since the moment I heard about Bernie Sanders in 2016 when he ran for president then. That's his very first announcement speech. I was like, that's my guy. And I've been a Bernie Sanders fan ever since, right? So I was watching a video of Bernie Sanders giving an interview recently, and somebody, I think it was probably CNN, somebody said to him, "What are you doing about the Bernie bro situation," basically. So I got to thinking about this. Now, where did that term originate, Bernie bros? I found where it originated. So I wanted to watch that clip with you guys and just give it some thought, okay? So this clip was released by CNN. I hope I'm not copyright stricken for playing it. It was released by CNN like back in the 2016 election when Hillary Clinton was battling it out in the primaries with Bernie. So let's listen to this short clip. It's like 30 seconds long or something, and let's see what it says.
The former president's words were stinging, blasting the Vermont senator and his supporters for what he called inaccurate and sexist attacks, including Bernie bros, the mobs of Sanders supporters who use crude language to attack Hillary Clinton backers online.
People who have gone online to defend Hillary and explain why they supported her have been subject to attacks that are literally too profane, often, not to mention sexist, to repeat.
Sanders disavowing such tactics.
That anybody who is supporting me is doing sexist things we don't want them. I don't want them. That is not what this campaign is about.
So that was the first instance of the use Bernie bros publicly, as far as I can tell. It was Bill Clinton creating this term basically out of thin air to try to find some way to attack Bernie Sanders, to crucify Bernie Sanders, to upset his supporters, to pull support away from Bernie and give it to Hillary. That was kind of the goal behind the term in the first place, it seems to me. I was watching this interview with Bernie Sanders, and this woman said, "What are you doing about the Bernie bros?" Bernie Sanders' answer to that was interesting. I think he said something like, "I don't want people who are mean and aggressive in my supporters. I don't want supporters like that," is basically what he said. But for the record, we have all kinds of people from different campaigns attacking our people. So I got to thinking, is that a tu quoque fallacy? Is that what he was presenting to us? Tu quoque, or the appeal to hypocrisy, is an informal fallacy that intends to discredit the opponent's argument by asserting the opponent's failure to act consistently in accordance with its conclusion. So basically, to summarize, to give you an idea of what the tu quoque fallacy is, it's basically, if somebody says, you're doing this thing and it's wrong, you are evading taxes and that's wrong, a tu quoque fallacy would be for that person to say, well, you didn't pay taxes last year either. That's not addressing the concern. That's not addressing the issue at hand. We're not talking about what I'm doing. We're talking about what you're doing. So let's figure out where you're going wrong, and then we can talk about other stuff. That's the tu quoque fallacy. So is what Bernie Sanders did the tu quoque fallacy? I was thinking about it, and ultimately, I don't think it is the tu quoque fallacy that Bernie presented there. My supporters are attacking people, yes, but there are other people attacking my supporters also. The reason I don't think that's the two wrongs make a right fallacy is because it's not something that Bernie Sanders is personally doing and not something that he endorses. He specifically said at the end of that Bill Clinton clip, in fact, let me play it again for you.
Sanders disavowing such tactics.
That anybody who is supporting me is doing sexist things we don't want them. I don't want them. That is not what this campaign is about.
Bernie Sanders disavows that kind of behavior, says he doesn't want those supporters. That's not what the campaign is about. If Bernie Sanders wasn't doing anything about it or wasn't making any kind of comment at all, then comes out against other people's supporters, I could kind of see the argument for that being a tu quoque fallacy. Now there's a question of whether or not it's stochastic terrorism. So I'm sure you guys have heard of this term, but just in case you haven't, let me define stochastic terrorism for you. Stochastic terrorism is the public demonization of a person or group, resulting in the incitement of a violent act which is statistically probable, but whose specifics cannot be predicted. The lone wolf attack was apparently influenced by the rhetoric of stochastic terrorism. So it would be like somebody whipping people up into a blood frenzy over Obama, claiming he's a Muslim who, I don't know, wants to turn the U.S. over to ISIS or some other thing, whatever. And there's this public figure that's doing it, like really laying into it and saying Obama is going to be the death of us all and he's getting ready to turn it over. He's not going to give up the presidency when his term runs up and things like that. And saying that the only way to prevent ISIS from taking over the U.S. is for somebody to use their Second Amendment rights or something, some other thing like that. That would be stochastic terrorism. When somebody actually acts on that, that is stochastic terrorism, where somebody whips people into a blood frenzy, gets them all riled up, and gets them to the point where somebody is going to act. Is that what Bernie Sanders is doing? No, absolutely not. We just listened to the guy. I mean, this is when the term was created. Bernie Bros was created. And this is his immediate response the moment the term came out.
Disavowing such tactics.
That anybody who is supporting me is doing sexist things we don't want them. I don't want them. That is not what this campaign is about.
To answer the question that I posed, is Bernie Sanders responsible for this? I would say that he would be responsible for it if he hadn't outright come out and said, do not do these things. I do not want supporters like this. To me, it feels like just another sleazy way of character assassinating the guy. But I don't know. Everybody's supporters are toxic to some extent. I haven't seen any examples of Bernie Sanders supporters being toxic. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does. I just haven't been there to witness it. Nobody is ever being a Bernie bro to me because I am a Bernie supporter. So that's probably why I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't feel like I have the data to say whether or not Bernie Sanders' supporter base is more toxic than any other person's supporter base. But, we just watched the term get fabricated by Bill Clinton right there in front of us. So I'm hesitant to believe that it's even a term that should exist. Yes, Bernie has toxic supporters. Yes, Joe Biden has toxic supporters. Yes, Hillary has toxic supporters. People are toxic, especially on the internet. You guys haven't logged into my Twitter account, but I can promise you I get some shit on there. I get some shit in my comment section. I get like death threats and stuff constantly. People are toxic online. That's just a fact of life. Unfortunately, I don't like it either. But instead of blaming Bernie Sanders for that, I feel like we should find a way to address the problem more broadly, as in figure out how to make Elizabeth Warren supporters less toxic, Bernie Sanders supporters less toxic, Joe Biden supporters less toxic, Trump supporters less toxic. How do we do that? I want to figure that out instead of kind of placing all of the blame on one guy who has outright said, I don't want anybody like that in my campaign anyways. So you don't hear Trump saying he doesn't want people like that in his campaign.